Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you'll enjoy listening to.
Join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical, transformational journey.
Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is pod number 126. My name is Jay, and I'm here with my co-host, Leta Herman. Hey, Leta.
Welcome back, Inspired Actioneers. Today, we're continuing our conversation about the yin and yang aspects of each of the 5 elements. And in this case, we're moving on to the earth element today.
I feel the earth move under my feet. I feel the sky tumbling down.
Yes.
I don't know. That's the only earth song I got.
That's a great song. It's not an earth song necessarily, but it's got...
When I sing it, it certainly is.
Yes.
Right?
That's about as earth as you get.
Right. And, you know, I think the earth element is very unique, like that song.
Yes. Aren't they all unique?
I guess so,
Yeah.
yes.
And fire was unique as well in our last episode because we were explaining why there are 4 types of fire instead of 2. But earth is always unique.
And why is that?
Well, the earth element is unique among all the other elements because even though they have 2 types, just like wood and metal and water, they're the only 2 types that share the exact same job title in the kingdom of you.
I like that. The kingdom of you.
And that's really what it is. You have 12 governmental officials, which is why you have 12 meridians in your body.
Yes, yes. And your heart is the king or queen or emperor or empress.
Right, or the supreme leader.
Yes. So why is earth unique?
Well, remember the earth element, we've talked about it before. It's the only element that is equally yin and yang on both the inside and the outside, unlike fire, which is double yang, and water, which is double yin.
I get that. And wood, which is yang on the outside, which you mostly see in the world, and yin on the inside, or metal, which is yin on the outside, but yang on the inside. All right, I'm getting that. I'm following.
Right. So you see wood and fire in the world as mostly yang, and you see metal and water in the world as mostly yin. That's how they kind of walk through the world. But earth is different.
So there's 4 elements, and then that 5th one is earth, and that's how they're different. They're different.
And earth can appear either yin and yang or really balanced in the world because it's equally yin and yang, both on the inside and the outside. So in the same fashion, the yin and yang aspects of earth are more balanced than the others. There are still some differences, though. But they actually don't have unique jobs. Usually each yin or yang type has its very own job title.
Like a little review here. For wood, the liver being the general of the armed forces, so to speak, holding the vision, and the gallbladder being the one who makes all the little decisions to execute on a vision. So that's the wood.
Yeah. And then we went to fire and we talked about, how there were 2 pairs. One was pericardium or the illuminator, and we had the triple heater, which is the socializer, and those pairs, they have different job functions.
For wood, we had the implementer and the visionary.
Yes.
Right. And the fire was the seeker of social.
Yes.
The social seeker of social.
And the illuminator. And then we had the other 2 fires, which was the supreme sorter and the supreme controller.
Right. So you could just be supreme.
Yes. So anyway,
now we're Earth. What are we gonna?
So they're the only ones in the government that actually share their job description.
Sort of like our government, the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Sort of.
Yes, except I don't know. That might be a little too militaristic. How about like co-directors of an organization?
Yes, because they love to be part of an organization, a community, a group of people trying to solve problems.
Family, that's the best.
Yes.
And actually they'd much prefer to share that director role with someone than be the boss all by themselves.
Yeah, they love that cooperation and sharing overall in general. But why do they share a job?
Because you have to think of them as inseparable, even though they are distinct.
So what is their title then, Leta? What are we going to call them?
Okay, so the 2 types are called the stomach and spleen. And we'll share their cute names in a little bit, but their official job description, which they share, is the spleen and stomach are responsible for the storehouse and granaries, and the 5 tastes stem from them.
Wow. Okay, well, how do we differentiate them?
So even though they share that same function, they do take on yin and yang aspects just like all the other elements.
But wait, before we get to the cute names and all their different titles and all their different responsibilities, let's talk about what's going on the Inspired Action podcast and in the Alchemy Learning Center, where that is our place of all things alchemy for us.
Yes. Okay. So we announced in our last podcast that we have a new book coming out on the 13 ghost points this summer. So if you're not familiar,
Woohoo!
I know, it's so exciting. So if you're not familiar with the ghost points, that's fine. You can check out
It's going to be a perfect summer read.
Yes. Yes. And until then, you can check out pods 29 and 30 of the Inspired Action podcast.
All right, how do you just know which podcast else? I'd be like, I don't know, a long time ago we did them.
I'm fire. I'm the supreme controller.
Yes,
No.
but those are great.
I'm omniscient.
Those are great intros to this, and plus we talk about it all the time. And we have done some webinars and classes and all kinds of good stuff on it.
Yeah, and those webinars also are free for anyone who wants to check them out. They're on the Alchemy Learning Center. If you sign up for a free membership, you can watch some of those Ghost Point webinars.
Right, and we also have some new membership information coming out probably on the next podcast because we're finalizing all the details, but it's going to be awesome and amazing and lots of new stuff. But Leta, why would someone want to know about the ghost points?
That's a good question.
Why did we write this book?
Well, the ghost points are what can help you. It's like in the way we wrote the book, we tried to make it really accessible for people so that they can use them for their own self-cultivation. And that's what our podcast is about, is like, how can we use these Chinese medicine concepts for ourselves? And in particular, in the ghost points, it's about releasing this need to have obsessive thinking and anxiety in the world and our response to trauma. It addresses all of those things and helps us grow from those things.
And change the stories,
Yes.
like the trauma. And, there's no
Yes.
hierarchy of trauma. We've said that so many times. But, I think that it helps to change that story. I feel like in a very simplistic way, I like to think of it as like getting a clean slate.
Yeah.
Wiping
Totally.
it clean, and then you get to see what life is like. So
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
And so what else do we have going on in the alchemylearningcenter.com?
Well, I just wanted to
I know that's big.
Yeah, it's really big. So, go check it out. And we just want to thank everyone, Jay. We have to thank everyone who's been
Yes.
writing reviews. We've had a
Yes.
slew of reviews lately
Thank you,
on
thank
the
you,
podcast.
thank you.
On all different platforms. So wherever you're listening, if you want to jump over to write a review.
You don't have to jump. You can walk. You can scroll. You can, use your thumb. I don't care. But we have been sending out lots of T-shirts and mugs and hats and all that good stuff. So tell us what you want. If you write a review, you can just say anything nice that you like. We do read them all.
And you know what else is really helpful? Just tell your friends about this podcast.
Yes, that's way, 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 way helpful. That was a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, and I think that's happening a lot. A lot of people have been writing saying, my friend told me about the podcast. So thank you for everyone
Thank you,
who's done
times
that.
a million. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank
Wonderful.
you. So again, you could just go to Apple. What did we say? The 3 A's: Apple, Amazon and
Audible.
I don't know.
for our book.
Right, and then or YouTube, which we now have YouTube, or Spotify.
Yeah.
Yay, or anywhere you listen to your podcast. We don't mind. Or you can also
Yeah.
go check out our books. We have Audible books. We have all kinds of stuff. So, and we have so much coming. So just stay tuned. But Leta, I think you nailed it. The more you tell your friends,
Right.
and the more they tell their friends, the more this little podcast will get out in
Yes.
the world.
Yes.
And we're just getting there. So again, swag if you want to do a review.
Yes.
All right, that's all I need to
Okay,
say.
great.
Should we get back to the spleen and the stomach?
Yes. All right.
Not too sexy, but let's get back to that spleen and stomach.
Well, we're going to make it very sexy.
Hey, I don't know about that. Is that even possible?
Well, I mean, Earth people are very sexy. So I guess in that respect. So
Sure.
we're talking about the spleen
Wait,
and
I don't
stomach.
think I've ever heard anyone say, hey, I think you have a sexy spleen.
No.
No?
Or a stomach. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe their midriff is sexy.
On the
in some
inside?
way.
We're
Yeah.
talking about the inside stuff,
no,
okay?
No, I guess not.
No. But anyways, it could be sexy in your mind,
Right.
right?
Right.
I'm too sexy for my spleen. Too
There
sexy
you
for
go.
my spleen. No? No.
That's it. That's it.
No, all
Okay,
right,
that's
all right.
the new
So
Earth
let's
song.
let's just get back to the strange aspects of the spleen and stomach. I'm not ruling out sexy. I'm just saying. Let's just go because it's about the digestive.
Yes, it's about the digestive system, and the functions of both of these organs are so interlinked. And let's just break it down today so that you can understand what these types look like in a human being.
Yeah, that sounds like why we're here today. We're slowly getting to that, everyone. We're rolling it out. We're getting there. We're really processing how to get to the start of the podcast.
Good word. Okay, so the yang aspect of Earth is the stomach, which we call the analyst, which is processing. That's why I said it was a good word. And the yin aspect is the spleen.
And we're going to call that the philosopher.
Yeah.
I love those two.
Yeah,
the analyst and the philosopher.
Yes, because both the stomach and the spleen types together are the digesters. They digest the food and liquids we take in, but they also digest ideas. They're big thinkers.
Yeah, and so let's differentiate a little bit between big visionary and big thinkers.
Yeah.
Right?
We've always talked about Earth being the thinkers. You know, they're always mulling something over and ruminating.
We were just talking about Brené Brown, perfect example, right, of this Earth. We're going to get into that, why that fits in so much. So I love that.
And so all the Earths, they're often analyzing and they're trying to solve problems by understanding the problems. And both the stomach and spleen folks are doing this all the time, especially when it's about people.
Yes, and let's just try, if anyone out there, problems or challenges.
Yes.
They're your friends.
Right. We're going to talk about why Earth people also think they're friends in a bit. But, you know, they also really, it's all about family.
Yeah, they like to
too.
focus on the family members. They're always thinking about what makes them, their circle, their family tick.
Yeah.
They're always trying to figure them out, I think.
Yeah, always. And they also love the 5 elements because, or any kind of system that helps them understand people like the Enneagram or Myers-Briggs or anything like that, that helps them figure out how to solve relational problems.
Yeah, when we've done podcasts on Earth in the past, we've talked about their focus on their kids or their partner, or why it's so hard to communicate with their boss, or where the breakdown of the relationship with their best friend came from. It can go on and on and on. All of it, which is really, really important stuff.
Right. So let's break this down, especially for all you Earth types.
Absolutely. Okay, so just like the other elements we've done so far, let's talk about the Earth spectrum / continuum.
Yes.
We're using the word continuum.
So stomach is the yang one. So we can imagine that the stomach analyzer type is all the way on the left side, and the yang side of the continuum, the spleen philosopher, is on the right side, the yin side of the continuum.
Yeah, and I just want to bring one thing up that one of our listeners asked about before. When we're talking about these yin and yang types, we're really only talking about your first element. It doesn't really apply to your second or third elements, but it's really good to understand.
Yeah, so
when
that's
you're
a good
trying to
point.
study the 5 elements.
I'm glad you brought that up. It's a common misconception that if you think your stomach first and then you have fire second, that you need to figure out what type of fire you are for your second element. But we don't really do that. In the second and third positions, the yin and yang aspects, it's really not possible to sort that out. It's much easier to just say you're earth, fire, and then to look at which type of earth you are, that first element.
Yeah, and then you can also, for your second element, really focus on the positives of that element.
Definitely.
And then you can we talk about the slippery slope going to the third, but really focus on the positives of the second element. And so that's important for all you earth elements out there because you analyze things so deeply. I'm sure it was an earth person who probably asked that question.
Yes.
Actually, I'm quite certain it was.
It had to be.
Yeah, so I love that. I love that. That's great.
All right, so back to stomach versus earth. To explain the differences between them, I really need to talk about the digestive system from the Chinese medicine perspective, which is a bit different from how Western medicine looks at the digestive system. So I have to nerd out a bit here.
Okay, be super nerdy, but remember, make it super simple.
Yes.
I am the chief of simple here.
Okay.
I am the simpleton.
Okay, I can do that.
I'm not. I'm just joking.
So the stomach is the more yang side of the digestion. It is in charge of taking in all the foods and liquids and breaking them down. And the spleen in Chinese medicine is really both the spleen and the pancreas. We usually just call it the spleen, but remember, it's the spleen and pancreas. And together they are the more yin side of digestion, which is the magic of transformation. which we're going to talk about in a bit.
I know, and Leta, you often say that digestion begins with the eyes. Do you mean that's when you see the food?
Yes.
Your digestion already starts?
Yes, it's that old adage, my eyes are bigger than my stomach.
Oh, my God. My Nana used to say, your eyes are bigger than your belly all the time. And she was Earth, by the way. Maybe
That
Earth
makes
would.
sense. That makes sense.
I never knew what that meant. Wow.
So the eyes are part of the digestive system, and you have to see the food before you eat it, which is the stomach's job.
Well, yeah, most of us don't eat in the dark, although unless you're at a movie theater, then you do, right?
Yes, right?
I do love that special diet, that seafood diet.
Seafood and eat it.
Yeah, see all the food and eat it. I want it all.
So the first point on the stomach meridian, in fact, is under the center of your eyes. This just proves that your eyes are the first step. So seeing and gathering information as well as food is what the stomach does, because only when you have all the information can you then move on to the wood element's job.
Which
you
is the
mentioned
strategy of how to get that into your mouth.
before. Yes. And that's why earth and wood can really work so well together as a team, even though they are so different.
As long as they respect each other's dietary needs and requirements and preferences.
Yes, exactly. But if they cook together, they'd make a great team.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Earth takes time to gather all the information.
Yeah, leave no buffet stone unturned.
Yes.
We want to try them all.
Yes. And then
Now that would be more fire.
that would be more fire. And then wood, which can be impatient, but it has to learn how to wait for Earth to do analysis. Then it can take that analysis and reflect on it and make decisions. And that's the gallbladder's job.
So the stomach and the gallbladder are pals. They're buddies.
Yeah.
But Leta, can you just take 1 second and tell me the difference between the fire sorting and the earth kind of doing the analysis?
Yes. So the stomach is just taking in information and breaking it down into little bits. And then the small intestine is going, is this bit good for the body or does it have to get peed?
So it's going on
out?
at almost the same time.
Yeah, exactly. We think of it linearly because the small intestine is further down in the digestive cycle, but that's not how Chinese medicine looks at it. So we just have to think of it not linearly. Things are happening all at once, all the time. So the stomach is about applying thought to a situation.
Or what we call problem solving, which is really problem analysis today for this podcast, breaking things down into understandable tiny little bites to eat and digest.
You're really hungry, huh?
I am hungry. I skipped lunch today.
So that's what the stomach does. And it takes in everything to begin the digestive process.
Which makes me think of the word chewing. They're chewing on, they're marinating,
Yes, actually,
doing it.
That's the next thing. There are points on either side of the mouth. So first it's the eyes, then it's the mouth and the chewing, and then it's the throat and the swallowing. And the points go from the throat and then downward all the way through the alimentary canal. And it's about eating, chewing, swallowing. So basically it's breaking down the food so your body can use it.
So if we expand on these ideas, stomach people's minds are chewing, processing all the time. You can almost hear or see that image in their head, see the gears working in their head, like that thought of like the things are turning. Well, they're stewing, they're chewing, they're marinating, they're processing.
I know. It is like you can almost see them doing it. They're always chewing on something, taking in new thoughts, new information, new ideas, and putting it in the soup of all the other thoughts and ideas, breaking them down and trying to understand them.
So is it fair to say the stomach is kind of the first step, the breaking things down step after the eyes, then the strategy, and
Yes.
then down? Okay. I got it. I got it.
Which is why we call stomach people the analyzers. They love to analyze everything to try to break things down into their components in hopes that they'll be useful later.
And the stomach has lots of space for all those components to be taken in and broken down. Remember, it can get big, 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 and can get small. It expands.
Yes.
It can hold a lot of stuff.
Yes, but actually, in reality, not a ton of space. It has to continuously move things through it to avoid getting backed
it's
up.
It's not like a dumpster.
No.
Like you've got to
Right. So getting backed up is a huge problem for digestion. You have to keep things moving all the time and not let it get stagnant.
Otherwise, if, you have to, like you said, slow down the eating. If the stomach is backed up, then what? Then you're bloated. Let's just say it's not pretty, or things start going, backwards.
Yes, and that's
Right?
really bad. That's what we call rebellious qi, which is like reflux or heartburn. So the stomach actually has safeguards against that happening. It has doors at each stage of the digestive system to stop any backflow.
Okay, and I'm sure, I hope everyone's following the metaphors here. The metaphors of, we're really not talking about food, but yet we're talking about food.
Yes, because
Right?
you're hungry.
Because you're hungry. No, but I'm just saying, like, we're talking. This is how Earth people process information, emotions,
Yeah.
events,
Yes.
people. They love to process things about people. Trying to
Jay,
figure out.
did you purposefully not eat so that you could get in touch with your stomach for this podcast?
If you hear it growling, yes. No,
Okay.
no. I know I'm going to eat in just a little bit.
Okay.
No, I did not.
All right. So the spleen and stomach are responsible, like we said, for the storehouses and granaries. So you might think it is long-term storage. It sounds like it, but it's really short-term storage. Just enough time for them to be broken down and distributed. It's essentially a filling and emptying process that is happening all the time.
Well, the stomach rarely gets a break. It's always in action somehow.
Yeah, and as soon as the stomach is done with one meal, it's on to the next meal.
Which is why fasting can be helpful for the stomach. It does give it a little bit of break, and then it can kind of maybe rest a little bit.
Yeah, and we also say that stomach people benefit from mental rest through meditation, giving their minds a rest. It's what we call fasting of the mind.
Fasting of the heart and the mind and the stomach even.
Yes, because it's a time not just to let go of your thoughts, but also your heart's desires. That's why we even call it heart/mind.
Yeah.
And that's really good for people to do meditation, to, release the need to constantly think.
Right. So the stomach fills up and then empties over and over and over again. What does this look like in people? Like, let's kind of really explain it.
Yes. So we often say that Earth people are mindful. The idea of being full of thought. It's what is the best thing about Earth in general. That's why we call them considerate, contemplative. That's why they excel at understanding. These are all Earth words.
All right. So the stomach is moving thoughts, emotions through. They're moving that through. They're processing that through.
Yeah.
All right.
And
so
remember,
that's the stomach.
Yes, but remember, that's making it go through. That means the stomach has to constantly give away what it's taking in. It can't keep or hoard any of it, even thoughts. You can think of the storehouse as kind of like a giant warehouse where things have to get distributed from.
Like a giant Amazon, huge distribution center for Earth, for
Yes.
thoughts, feelings, processes.
Yes.
Okay, great. Are we going to automate that center, or are we going to have people working in there? I need to know.
Actually, we're going to answer that question. So
That was a trick question.
That was a trick question. So the distribution of these things that are useful is not the stomach's job. They're just there to hold it and move it through. For people, who are Earth, and especially the young analyst types, it's good to know that they aren't in charge of they're just in charge of breaking that stuff down, but it's not their job to do anything with all the stuff.
I know. That's really, really, really important. If you can just say that again, because I think that's where a lot of people don't understand that is it. That's their job. That's what the stomach does.
Yes. So the stomach's job is just to fill the warehouse with stuff, broken down little bits of things that will get distributed, but it's not their job to do anything with all that stuff.
Thank you for explaining that. That's where the spleen comes in. That explains it.
Yes, that's it. That is exactly where we were going next. The spleen is the transformation part. How does all that food or those ideas become useful to us?
We need enzymes. We need things to digest, break things down, maybe? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. We can't really use the chewed up bits until we apply some transformation magic to them. And that's the spleen/pancreas's job.
Yeah, in Western medicine, the pancreas actually creates those enzymes. But in Chinese medicine, we often we just say the spleen instead of the spleen/pancreas to make it simpler.
Yes.
And we're about simple.
Yes.
So the pancreas is there, but we often just say the spleen.
Yes, but it's important, like,
I like
you
that.
said.
But not the butt.
Yes, right. It is important, like you said.
Higher than the butt.
Right.
We're not to the butt yet.
No, that's the next episode with the large intestine.
Yeah.
But anyway, okay. So that was good.
So hold up on the butt.
Okay. So What you said, though, Jay, the pancreas actually makes those enzymes. So don't get confused. The spleen, when we say spleen, it's spleen/pancreas. The spleen is the yin aspect of the earth element. And what it's doing is it's holding the magic, that transformational component that we all need.
So yeah, we've talked about this in the past. And Leta, you've often said that if you eat an apple, how do like some of those bits of that apple actually become part of us? Like,
Yes.
How does that transform that holder of magic?
That's the magic of the spleen. It holds that magic, and I like calling it that instead of, like, I like saying that it's magic instead of enzymes because the Chinese medicine perspective doesn't really look at it as just enzymes. It's way more complicated than that. And we're trying to make it simple for this episode, but there's a lot of magic involved in transforming food into the chi that runs your system.
I'm going to give you air quotes on that magic,
Yes.
right? We could always just save that for another episode about the digestive system. But today,
Yes.
we'll just keep going on this. But if you do want digestive system someday, let us know and we'll think about it.
Yeah, we could have a whole episode on what we call gu chi, which means food chi and how it's made.
I think I have a Gucci bag. No?
No.
I want a Gucci bag.
Okay. It's spelled differently, but yeah, it's like
Oh, okay. It's not Gucci. It's Gucci. I get it.
Yeah.
That's embarrassing. It's more like I have a food chi bag to carry all my food around.
there you go.
Okay. All right. Moving on from the Gucci. The stomach, it's very active all the time, breaking things down. I'm going to do a quick summary here. And then the spleen/pancreas is storing the magic. And then when the magic is needed, it adds that little bit of the magic or the enzymes to the soupy mix that the stomach has that's broken it down. That's how the food becomes usable. That's how it becomes needed in the body. Where does that go?
Exactly. Good summary. And a spleen person is going to be much less analytical and more philosophical when you think about thoughts, especially. How do you transform a bunch of random thoughts that the stomach broke down into usable bits and turn them into philosophies you can live by?
You know, I do see a lot of earth people sometimes gets a little tripped up here and they get stuck in this area, but we're going to move past that. The philosophers are the masters of the aha moments.
Yes. The spleen comes along and takes that soupy mix of random thoughts and creates the philosophies and really the belief systems that you're going to live by your whole life. And so while every earth person is going to be somewhat analytical, the spleen philosopher type is going to be less analytical and more philosophical.
Yeah. Or maybe another way we could think about it is the stomach is in charge of receiving all the foods and the fluids, and the spleen is in charge of creating something useful for the rest of the body, including high-level ideas, like the mission statement, which then has to be disseminated out to the land, which we call the transportation function of the spleen.
Yes, that's great.
Right? Disseminate it out.
Yes. And so this is what we call the power of earth, which is to decrease, to give it all away continuously. And how does the spleen figure out what to do with it? Because it's just a soupy mix in the stomach. It's the spleen's job to identify what bits go where, which we call the transportation function.
Maybe it's like the spleen's minions.
Yes.
Like they make them go do little things. Like
Yes.
that. And it does it through taste, right?
Yeah, and
Taste.
that's actually a good point because some people think the spleen is actually in charge of getting the stuff to where it has to go, but no, it's like deciding where things go. That's
Right.
the transportation function. It doesn't actually move the stuff there. That's other functions in the body.
There you go, right? And so it does this through taste.
Yes, it's such a strange concept, but there's 5 tastes, and the 5 tastes are sort of inhabiting your tongue, right? Because that's how we taste. And they help the spleen decide what parts of everything you're eating will help different parts of your body. So maybe we should go through the 5 tastes.
Yeah, we were just talking about this. So the 5 tastes are sour, acidic, like citrus, vinegar, pickles, green apples, which I love.
Yes.
All of those things, right? Which goes to the liver.
Yes, that makes sense because you're wood. All right. And the bitter taste, which is associated with fire, it's like chocolate, coffee, but even like dandelion greens are very bitter, arugula.
Okay. So who's like out there eating dandelion leaves? I know
a
they have
lot of
dandelion
people.
tea, but
Yes.
like really out in the yard, just nom, 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 nom. Okay.
No,
what?
they eat it like in a salad or they cook it or anyway, it's all
I'm just
associated
saying,
with
but
the
it's
heart.
bitter, right?
Yes.
So that's not even
Yes.
like a chocolate dandelion
Yeah.
leaves. No.
No.
That's why. Okay. So, all right. Anything sweet?
And just to say, like the classic Chinese food is called bitter melon. In case you have never
which
tried
probably
it,
grows right next to the bitter dandelion leaves.
yes, and
Right.
it's very bitter.
Yeah. I think we had that in China.
Yes,
Yeah. It
we
was
did.
not. It was not on the repeat list.
No.
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 So, all right, so anything sweet goes to the spleen, which is, of course, my favorite taste.
Yes, I don't think we need to explain that one.
No.
And
Sweet is great, right?
yeah, and many people like sweet the best, even if they're not earth, because sweet is good for all of us. It nourishes us. And so then let's just look at the next one is spicy or pungent, and that goes to the lungs. So that's the metal element. And it can be anything from like hot peppers, which you think of as spicy, but things that are like pungent, like rosemary, cinnamon, ginger.
Yeah, you get that whiff, and like you have to kind of like pull back a little bit. Yeah.
They have a strong taste. Yeah.
And then also we have salty, which I also love, which goes to the kidney, which makes sense. Salty water, right? You
Yeah.
have to do that. So, Leta, explain this transportation distribution part of the spleen. What does it look like in a person? Like,
Great. Well, one earth person who is definitely spleen used to explain it to me like this. She said she used to have all these ingredients to bake a cupcake.
this is another metaphor story?
Yes, it's another metaphor.
Just checking.
And the ingredients were all the observations she'd made of life. And she had collected all these pieces of information together. That's that stomach part, that soupy mix in the stomach. In fact, she's probably, if we're going to talk, we're going to get to the continuum. She's probably in the middle of stomach and spleen because she did love collecting all these bits of information. And she'd saved up all those thoughts. Actually, she used to write them on Post-it notes even. And she was just waiting for the right person to come along who needed her to bake them a yummy cupcake.
Okay, so I actually like this metaphor because I love cupcakes, right?
Right.
Cupcake analogy. Now we're talking like, all right, so that's pretty good.
That's
but I
good.
guess that we're talking about information and memories and experience
Yeah.
and knowledge and wisdom.
And wisdom, yeah. And the analogy actually works. So when she encountered someone who needed help trying to figure something out, something that related to all these things, she'd bake them a special cupcake with its own unique recipe and give it to them. And the cupcake was entirely unique to them and new because it was a recipe that's never been made before. And basically what it was that aha moment that earth people love so much, some kind of like new idea, new thought, new philosophy that would help this other person that received the cupcake, in their life. And her job was simply to transform those ingredients into a cupcake and then deliver it to the right person. And that's the spleen in a nutshell.
Or in a cupcake
Right.
muffin tin kind of. What's a cupcake wrapper? Like it's a
Right.
muffin tin. I don't know.
Yeah, a muffin, what are those
Tin,
called?
aren't they called? Muffin
Yeah.
wrapper? I don't know.
Yeah.
The cupcake wrapper.
Yes.
is now the metaphor of the spleen nutshell. In
Yes.
a nutshell. Okay, that's great. I get that.
And it's not always easy to find the right person who needs your cupcake.
Or wants your cupcake.
Right. When people don't take the cupcakes, they're so disappointed when their cupcakes
Well,
don't
because
get
they're
eaten.
not necessarily free. They might have some earthly strings attached.
Yes.
Right? But why do you think that happens?
It's usually when the earth person is getting so taken up with this desire to teach.
Yeah, and teaching is kind of a form of giving away. And do you really think that it depends what the second element is on that earth person?
Oh, for sure. I mean,
what
that's
kind
true.
of cupcake they're going to bake?
Yeah, that's true for any element in their gifts. I mean, it's going to be multi-level. If it's an earth fire person, they might, be doing more relationship issues with people.
Maybe
If
earth
it's-
wood might be more strategy or how to
Yes.
figure this out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. I get the cupcake menu.
And going back to this idea that, not everyone wants their cupcakes, sometimes they forget that their true gift is just listening. The gift of giving is just a way to listen and validate other people's experience.
I like that. That's a nice way of really saying that.
It's like, hey, I'm really hearing you, so much so that I just took all you said and I baked you this amazing cupcake, and it's your absolute
Still
favorite
doing
flavor.
the cupcake metaphor? Okay.
Like, it's because it's your favorite flavor, and I know because I heard you. So what really happens there is they've forgotten that it's all about the magic, and they get stuck in teaching generically. And it's really about that listening and that magic of the way they listen, and then they turn that into something else. That process of turning it into something that is important to the person that they are talking to, that's the spleen. That's why so many earths become teachers or psychologists, because at least they're able to give away their cupcakes all day long to the people who actually need them.
They could also be bakers,
Yes.
right? Because that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
I like that.
Yes. And there's one more thing about this. We are all constantly growing and evolving. Like the seasons, winter is always turning into spring. So you could say that winter engenders spring. It's the parent to it. Why? Because in the winter, the seeds get stored in the ground for preservation until the right moment when spring comes. And now the potential of all those seeds gets to be fulfilled through growth. And so, what comes between each season?
The magic of earth.
Yes.
The magic of the spleen transformation.
Yes.
The magic. That is
Yes.
the earth.
Yes, and every transition in your life needs a bit of the spleen in you to create some magic, to move you from one state to the next. We all have a spleen.
Well, hopefully, unless yours has been removed. Well, the good news is if you have had it removed, which I know people who have had it removed,
Yeah.
is that if you have an organ removed from your body, you still have the meridians, the Chinese medicine meridians, the energy in the body. It still has the functions of that organ system, correct?
Yes, good point.
Yes.
Good point. So we all have a spleen in us, even those.
That explains it.
Yes.
I've been waiting for that one.
And we all have the ability to transform and distribute the good stuff we create to just the right people. But Earth, and especially both the stomach and spleen types, their whole reason for being is to give away, and decrease.
Which means they also have to tend to themselves, which is a challenge in the earth
Yeah,
for
they
sure.
have self-care.
Right, self-care. Because the stomach, if it doesn't keep taking in all those nutrients, there'll be no cupcake on the other end.
Yes, exactly.
And nothing coming out the other end either. Right?
Exactly.
Just saying, they have to take care of themselves.
Yes, and that's why in addition to food, Earth people love learning. They're always learning. They're basically eating ideas, thoughts, food for the mind and soul.
Yeah, and if an earth person who isn't taking in ideas, well, they're probably stuck, challenged,
Yeah.
I don't know, in a place they're not happy about.
Or they're just really overwhelmed.
Yes.
Like if they have a lot of kids and a lot of responsibilities, they're completely out of energy, out of gas.
Stuck on the side of the road with no cupcakes.
Right? And at that point, the earth person, they get stuck in kind of me mode. Me, mine. How am I going to fix this? I have nothing left to give. So maybe I'm just not going to give anymore.
Yeah, when it's like that, dun.
Yeah.
There's nothing left to give. It's checkout time. It's like they're just not there in their lives.
Yeah. And literally, that's when serious illness comes and you actually could check out for good.
Yeah, really. So, all right. So before we go in that morbidity, we're talking cupcakes and
Yeah.
happiness. But so what is the overwhelmed earth person to do if they're out of gas, if they're
Yeah.
out of ideas, if no one wants their cupcakes?
It's a common challenge for Earths, and it's just too fast. Remember, it takes time to digest. Life can go really fast. So go back to the beginning of the digestion process, your eyes. What do you want to take in to nourish yourself? Look, see, what do you want physically? What do you want mentally? What do you want spiritually? What do you actually want to eat?
Yeah, when do you want to see food and what do you want to eat? Like, what is on the menu?
Yes.
Take time to look at the menu.
Yes, exactly. And then take time to chew. Chew on the good stuff you're taking in.
Yeah, and I also always suggest take a bath, a nice hot bath, so you can actually have time to think to yourself, let your mind chew on the stuff, and give it time. Take that time for yourself, that self-care, that earth nourishment on yourself.
Yeah, exactly. So I think stomach and spleen are kind of the hardest yin yang pairs to differentiate in general. And here's another way to think about it. Stomach is about thought, which is called Si in Chinese, and that's different than purpose and intent, which is called Yi, which is what the spleen is about. The Si is the actual thoughts you have, and the Yi is the idea of who you are and your level of purpose and intent.
Yeah, the purpose and intent comes from out of what we just talked about in our last episode later, the idea of the heart having a true sound. And from that sound, the earth element creates that purpose and that intent. It's like you have this identity, but then you also have this understanding of that identity.
Yeah, mental.
It's so important, that
Yeah.
intent for your life.
Yeah, it's very mental. And that's why we don't actually say the mind when we think of earth. We call it heart/mind. It's where your heart's song that we talked about in the last episode meets your spleen and the ability to have thought in general. And of course, that's where you bake those thoughts into a
You have
cupcake.
to have intent for sure. You have
Yeah.
to want to do it. So the continuum is from thought to intent, and some people are in the middle. They do both functions. I know a lot of people that are earth and they can do both functions. I actually know someone who does this for a living. She interviews people and gathers data for organizations. She's just been doing it for a long time. There are thousands and thousands of data points. It will probably overwhelm most people to try to gather and make sense and sort through. And then she sifts through all that data, creates philosophies about all these different people and problems and challenges and things, and presents them to the organization. Like, boom, here's this giant cupcake that you can now serve to your organization. And I mean, that's the ultimate earth job, to go through that whole process and really take time with it and sort it out for someone else.
And because I love that example, she can do both functions. She's halfway on the continuum. She has both the information gathering, problem identification, and analysis function of the stomach, plus she has the high-level transformation process of what all that information is going to mean. And she can deliver it like a cupcake to just the right people.
Yeah, I mean, and there's just more to that spleen function. Not only do they deliver it, but they do it with a nurturing kind of warmth. They don't just bring the cold data analysis, they personalize it. They lift people up. They have a purpose with it. That's what the spleen does. They give it a container. They hold the people. They protect them. It's like that safe space container there. Mm-hmm. That's how they are in general. Like, that's how they do it without really having to think about it, if they're in a good place. They're in a good place.
Yeah, and whereas every earth person is like that, the stomach people are a little more in the data gathering. They're very curious about people, and they might be a little less nurturing, less holding, less protecting in general.
Yeah, I think you're correct, Leta, on that. And every person probably has some of both things on the continuum, but many earth element people come to us and say, I just don't get it. I just don't feel it. You say I'm earth, but I don't have that nurturing feeling inside of me. That's like the most important thing in my life. I mean, I take care of my kids. I'm a good mom, but I don't feel that warmth, that nurturing that everyone talks about, that everyone expects. And that just means they're probably more on the yang side of the earth element there, more curious about the analysis. And, Leta, we also live in that society where we're all, all the mothers out there, as soon as you have kids, you're supposed to be uber mom.
Yeah, so the stomach side is definitely more about being curious, more analysis, less nurturing. Obviously they're earth, so they're going to be somewhat nurturing. But if you are earth out there and you were kind of like, I just don't get it, it just doesn't feel like me, let's have you try this yang, stomach person out. Try this, see if stomach really hits home for you. And if you're more the spleen type, you might feel like you really are that uber nurturing earth type we talk about, where the kids are everything in your lives. You love helping them. You love figuring out their purpose and intent in life. And if that's the case, then you're more likely to be yin, and that's the spleen side of earth.
Yeah, and sometimes this can be to the point of sacrificing. We see that a lot in earth element people.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's a point on the spleen channel. It's called spleen 20 that it represents the crown of thorns, essentially, like that ultimate sacrifice, or even like a halo, like where the earth person becomes everyone's angel.
Yeah, you're willingly crucified on the cross, or you're going to get COVID because everyone in your family has COVID.
Yes.
Like you're going to take it on for everyone, that you're just going to become everyone's angel.
Yes. But they only feel like that when their children aren't receiving their love, because then they really feel martyred. But there are so many ways Earth can give, and this point represents something really important. The spleen channel begins at the big toes, and it ascends all the way up to the chest near the armpit. And then it does this strange thing. It just comes down a little bit to one more point. So the channel comes to the highest point, that's the one we're talking about, 20, and then it turns downward. So what does that mean?
I'm going to let you explain that one. Do tell.
Okay. It means that the spleen channel is in charge of ascending the energy up to actually grasp a little bit of heaven and then turn down to earth and bring that light of heaven back down to all of us. So the next point, that spleen 21 point, is called great enveloping. This is the mother's embrace. So it's not just any old hug when an earth mom hugs you. It's an angel's hug, literally. It's a hug filled with the light of heaven.
Yeah, they are always really good huggers. And that's so powerful. And this can only happen because of the stomach channel, which comes before the spleen channel, which has to first take it in to descend all those nutrients, to like take it all in before the spleen can rise up to heaven, as you just said, and give that awesome uber hug.
Yes. And that's the difference. Stomach taking in and then descending everything, spleen transforming it and then ascending it up.
All right, you said a lot better than I did.
And then, yes. And then delivering something really incredibly valuable to the rest of us, something for the community, a bit of heaven on earth.
A little cupcake from heaven on earth. Okay, so Leta, how can we, for the rest of the non-earths out there listening, like me, be with the earth? What do they want from us? How can we hang with them? How can we connect with them? How can we relate to them?
Well, first of all, how curious are you about them? Remember, the stomach types, they just want to hang out with someone who is actually curious about them, as curious as they are about you.
Yeah, I can do that.
And, but you have to do it in an earthy way. If you just fire off a bunch of curious questions at them, then...
Not even just questions, like not even just curious questions.
Yes, but you have to do it in an earthy way. If you just decide to be curious because, you're just going to fire a bunch of questions off at them, like, tell me about this, tell me about that, whatever. That's not really what they're looking for, because you're just prioritizing your need to know particular information. What they really want is for someone to ask a question and then listen.
Like they do. Like
Really?
they do.
Yes, really, really listen. The next question shouldn't be something you want to know. It should lead them on their journey through their own thoughts. So the biggest mistake we all make is in our curiosity, we're actually prioritizing our own agendas. Being with a stomach is like taking a journey through a maze of thoughts. Like one of those rides at, the theme park that goes through the dark and you have no idea where it's going. They just take you there and you're fully engaged and along for the ride.
I'm pretty sure the Disney stomach, It's a Small World, did not make it. Right? Let's go through the intestines. Let's go through the spleen.
That's what I was thinking of that one.
No.
I was thinking of that ride.
That got nixed in the Disney Bright Ideas. No, that didn't make it.
No.
But, they do have variations on that. But yes, you have to leave your desire to get the destination out of it, especially if you're wood.
Right. And for me being fire, I have to leave me 100% out of it because that's what fires do. We always talk about ourselves. So it's not talking about what I think about that earth person at all. It's about finding out what the earth person thinks about themselves.
Yeah. So instead of saying, tell me about, you could say, I want to hear more about. See the difference? Like,
Yes.
it's more like curious. It's more a little more gentle.
Yeah.
But still it's not wishy-washy. But,
Yeah.
you want to hear more about X, Y, or Z.
They would love that phrase. I want to hear more about your children or your whatever they're talking about. I want to hear more about that. So with a spleen person, we have to be a little more involved than with the stomach information gathering. We have to bring our own philosophical nature to the discussion, our own magical transformation of thought into philosophies. So we have to participate, but, totally, again, not from what we think, but to help the person that we're talking to, that earth person, get to their transformation. So we're doing it with them.
I think that's key right there, with them.
Yeah.
We're doing it together.
Yes.
Yeah.
I always know when I'm with a spleen person in my clinic because they somehow leave and I realize I haven't written down a single thing because I'm so enthralled in the magic of their transformation right there in my room. Whereas with a stomach person, I might actually go, with intention to write something down for them or with them. Like we both want to record that thought. Oh, that thought was so good. Let's write that down. Because that's what the stomach does. It gathers it to store it. Maybe it counts something, it recognizes things. That's what the stomach is doing.
Yeah, I hope that helps a lot of people understand out there that earth, the different
it's
ways
hard.
to think about
These
it.
are tricky ones. And in both stomach and spleen cases, analyzer being stomach, philosopher being spleen, we make the mistake of trying to solve their problems for them.
Yeah, they can solve their own problems. Thank you very much. They already know it. They've already thought about it. They've already processed. They've gone around in circles for probably years.
Yes.
They know what's going on. But I do think that many people who are Earth, maybe they don't realize there's different versions and they could be both or in the middle. I think this is going to help a lot.
Yeah. And just in terms of solving their own problems, what an earth person wants us to do, the non-earths that are talking to them, they just want someone to do the digestive process with them if they're stomach or to do the transformation process with them if they're spleen. They don't want to do it alone.
No, they like to have people with them.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's a nice journey together.
Right.
It's a connection point.
Yes. And it's just you putting them at the center and you're offering them your thoughtfulness, your willingness to ponder things that are important. You're listening, you're letting them express themselves, you're empathizing. All this creates the environment where they can truly be themselves. And when you create that environment of truly listening, they can fix their own problems.
Yes, all adults learn by problem solving. I'll say problem, challenges, but especially the Earths, because you're right. They like problems, right?
They don't actually...
They process the problems.
Yeah, they don't even think problems are problems.
Right. That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
But it's a tough word for me.
Yeah, because they're not difficulties. They're just opportunities for learning. I mean, they really believe this, their heart and soul. It's not one of those trite phrases. They really believe problems are just opportunities for learning. So it's just taking an idea, working it, transforming it into something magnificent.
Like a yummy cupcake.
Yeah.
I now have to go have a cupcake.
Yeah.
You know that. We have to make a sugar-free, dairy, wheat-free,
Yes.
cardboard cupcake.
Or if we're tired of that metaphor, how about a poem, a play, a song, a work of art?
A life.
Yes.
A lifetime. A
Yes.
lifetime of life.
Magnificent. And from their magnificence, that light of heaven that I talked about, that grace that comes down, it becomes gratitude in our lives for the abundance of what these earths have sown. And sometimes it even comes in tears because the first point on the stomach channel is the received tears, or sometimes it's called the tears container point. And where the tears represent rain from heaven, which we so need. So earths bring their tears down from heaven and heal us when they hold us. Like the rain, it's a gift from heaven that nourishes the crops, creates growth, and ultimately brings the harvest.
Yeah, we all need those heavenly tears, and the crops need to survive. So
Yes.
we need that liquid, that heavenly water, rain, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. We just need it.
And ultimately, we all get tears. And we might actually, even though we're not earth, experience those gifts of heaven in ourselves, and we can give them to others too.
Wow.
So we can give an earth hug.
Get me all
anytime we
teary-eyed
want.
here. You're
Yeah.
giving me a little teary-eyed.
Yeah. And so I want you all to think, about yourselves and where earth is in your stack up, and, what it would be like to reach up to heaven and bring down a little bit of heaven's light or heaven's tears.
Or heaven's cupcakes. I'm throwing out the challenge of a keto or clean eating there. No sugar, no dairy, no gluten.
Cupcake.
Yummy,
Yummy.
loving cupcake.
Send us the recipe if you have one.
Or
All
make
right.
them. Or make them.
Or make them if you're earth.
If you're earth, then give me a hug when you give it to me. I'll give you a hug back.
Okay.
All right. Go out there and be earth and be proud and find out where you are on the spectrum, whether you're the philosopher or whether you're the analyzer and where you are. And I don't know, have fun. Have fun being earth.
Yeah.
I think that's my message here. And I don't know, have a good day.
Okay.
Bye. You've been listening to the Inspired Action Podcast, and you've reached the end. Woohoo! Why not celebrate a little bit and click that subscribe button right there. We love having you with us on this journey, and we want it to continue.
You can also rate and review this podcast. And if you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews, and your reviews help other people find this podcast as well. You can also be a part of this podcast yourself by submitting a voice recording message and emailing it to us at leta@inspiredactionpodcast.com or jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
And if you want, you can join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram.
Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and remember to hug the dog.